Wait for the start of our online streaming. Yeah. Zapomniałam zupełnie. Czytam mniej. Welcome again to our panel discussion, Body, Memory, History, in frames of the International Theatre Festival Retroperspektywy. Welcome all our dear panelists. Thanks for coming. Welcome to our guests and listeners that are here with us in Fabryka Sztuki. Also welcome to our listeners and viewers on Facebook that are with us now online. I hope we will have this discussion all together, at least from some point of our today's meeting. And we are here today to address some most pressing issues, I think, for our theater community nowadays, which is theater really necessary? Is theater really essential today? How can we make it essential? What kind of lesson can we learn from this pandemic experience? What kind of new tools we have to acquire to be able to take part in this huge global effort of healing and transformation that is awaiting us? And is theater really prepared for this new reality of isolation, of separation? So let's answer these questions. I hope at least try to answer these questions together. And we're looking forward also to having some comments below our online transmission on Facebook. We will gather the comments and we will address the issues in the second part of our meeting today.
If we manage, of course, because as you witnessed, we met some technical troubles. I hope we solved them already. We are all learning to perform online, so let's hope we'll become better and better in this. This is a kind of meeting that I would dare to call the meeting with remarkable women and men, or League of Legends, because this is the advantage of being online. I don't think we would be able to gather all you together in this place in the same time during the festival, but now thanks to the online technical support, we are happy to have together two wonderful, promising young women directors from Poland and Ukraine, Anna Karasińska and Olena Apczel, a Brazilian director and culture researcher, Brazilian-Polish director, culture researcher, Maciej Rożalski, and two legends of performance art and performance studies, Tomasz Richards, leader of work center of Jerzy Grotowski and Tomasz Richards in Pontedera, and the master of performance, and the father of us all, Professor Richard Schechner from New York, the father of performance studies, and of course, the legend of independent theater on the world. Here in Łódź, we also have, and it's not a, I don't think it's an accident, two Tomashes that wing us together with Zofia. Professor Tomasz Majewski from Jagiellonian University, a colleague of mine from our mutual university. He is better than me because he travels longer distance to get to the work than I do. And our host and a legend of Polish independent theater, Tomasz Rodowicz, who will start with some address to all of you.
Only this, what I can tell is I'm very happy that we have this chance to talk now. And this festival is the field where we are opening this team, what to do, how to behave in this new time. We don't have the answer, we have the question. And our talking will help us and about how to keep this, how to behave in the new technology, new way of distance of the stability, how to behave between new technology and humanity, how to take care of this, what is human inside us. But I will take, telling this example, using this example of this festival, I will tell you later, I want to give the voice to our guests.
Thank you so much.
Anna Karasińska, can we have your voice as the first one? Also because unfortunately you cannot be with us the whole meeting. Please speak.
Unfortunately, because we are having performance live, luckily. Maybe that's the last chance before everything gets closed again. So I have to be with my performance live. So should I start this whole difficult discussion? Oh no. Okay.
Yes, that's.
So is there any question or should I just...
Yes, if I may ask, because I think that to some degree, and it's not I'm not trying to be ironical, but to some degree your theater, your performances are perfect for social distancing. No direct contact, or let's say little direct contact between performers. All of them are rather chamber one for small groups of people, for a small space. The first round of this discussion, we would like to ask mainly practitioners, start with practitioners, to ask all of you how this pandemic situation affected your work. Did it change, or did you discover something, or did you just, of course, all of us met some troubles, but were these troubles inspirational or just a disturbance?
Okay, so I would answer for this what you just said, that my performance, that my works are like perfect for a time of social distanciation. And it's very funny because everybody says that, because I even have one show that people are standing on the crosses marked on the floor, and so they don't move, they never get closer to each other. But the thing is that when you say that, you don't see the half of the performance, which is always very big audience, that is usually overcrowded, and that actually makes the performance to happen. That's the first thing. And actually, if something scares me now is how will we play for people if these people are not so connected because of the distance between the spectators. And the other part, like the second part of my answer would be that, yes, I mean, on the level of visible reality, that's really like very simple. But what I think, like, the main transmission is happening somewhere else. It's not in the behavior, I would say. And the whole situation is made in the way that we are actually taking like everything that could disturb this exchange on a deeper level is taken away. So basically, I think this is the type of performance that is not good to be presented online. Would be, and also that there is some recordings, and these recordings, it's very strange with recordings. Like sometimes they would do work, somehow it's possible to catch what happened, right? It's different than a movie, because it's like the main difference is like that we just have recorded, like from a certain perspective, something that happened in the box of the stage or in the room. Yeah, so I do have some recordings that do give some impression of what really happened there. But of course, it's very little comparing to the real experience. At least I hope so. And at least if I compare my own experience, because, you know, I'm never 100% sure about the experience of others. And actually, I wouldn't like to be. Yeah, so I'm not so optimistic about my work in this time, but there is something very optimistic in this time when I look about my personal experience, and I kind of imagine that I'm not the only one who had it, which is like there is a lot of unnecessary activity that I stopped to have during this time, and that basically I became more alive, like concentrating on my own inner and also physical, biological life could expand, and I started to enjoy being alive just with like this process itself. And this I think is something that opens up another level in us, the level that is very neglected, in like that was always neglected before. So I hope this could happen to more to people, and this could somehow make us re-evaluate what we really search in the world and also in the art somehow.
Do you think that, because I ask this question being in opposite position towards this problem, because I also think that your theater is not perfect for the social distancing time, because it's based somehow on a very subtle processes that are going on during the live performance. I watched some of your performances only in recordings, especially the one from Krakow that almost no one saw, but it's absolutely different. There's a strong difference between experiencing these performances live and experiencing them via recordings. And my question is, because it's not, this live process is not so obvious. It's not that the actors are touching someone, or there is no improvisation with the audience and so on and so on. So it's not so based on strong events. But the question is how to help to survive this subtle process of live performance in the times of going online. Do you have any ideas of, if and many people are saying that, pandemic will last more few years, what are you going to do? Are you going to work with online technology?
I have no answer for this for myself yet. I don't think so, but it did happen to me to have very interesting experience online during this time because I attended some choreography courses, and somehow it did happen that it had those moments that something really happened to us, right? And it was completely differently organized than what we would expect. Like sometimes it was just the fact that there was a lot of people from around the world and everybody had a different timing, and we already knew the script that we would meet and repeat the same procedure. And there was some kind of familiarity, our loneliness in reality, and then this meeting that always happened. And it became like a very emotional at some point that we were like, it was very hard to end, to quit the meeting. And we could see at each other's face that it would concern us all, even though it was not in the frame, we didn't talk about it. So there was something that happened, that suddenly we got this very strange connection because the other activities were so limited. And also what was in the course, what we would do, somehow got so much attention and so much from our lives that it distorted, it became something much more than it could be. So I think that there's always a chance, because basically we don't know how we connect in the real life, in reality. So I think that the virtual reality is also kind of reality, and we kind of always have this mysterious way of connecting, right? So it's very often like we have no technology and no common reality at all. We just think about each other and we kind of know about it. So I wouldn't like to decide for myself on the basis of what I'm feeling now, but when you talk about it, when you ask me this question, is my first and intuitive answer is that of course it will end one day. We will just be older, but maybe this time is not lost. And actually I work a little, and I always feel like this time in between is so precious. I don't know, it's like I don't know, it's like I like to live. I don't have to work all the time. It's difficult with money, and it's difficult with somehow like how to exist financially. But on the other hand, I'm feeling like this is also interesting, and this is also interesting from the point of performance, how I understand it, that because I always say that I do performance and people tell me I do theater, and for me this main difference is that I don't do the things that are predictable in a way. They always kind of have this something that it's like I until it's done, I don't know it's gonna be there. And now the situation in the world is like, I think it's like revealing some unexpected face of the world. I know it was all expected, but we didn't believe it is there, right? So now it's unexpected, and this is so, I don't know, the English word is like derouting, like we are not on the road that we knew before, and it's very exciting. So of course, on one hand, we all have compassion and we don't want people to get sick and die. But on the other hand, it's like, I don't know, maybe it will teach us something. I seriously hope for that. So somehow, as an artist, I kind of wait for like excited for a new shape of reality that I will work with, right? Because it's obvious that I expect that half of my work now is already like non-valid anymore.
Thank you so much. I would propose to move from Warsaw to beautiful Tuscany, to Thomas Richards, because for me it was absolutely surprising and almost shocking when I heard that when the pandemic outbroke in Tuscany, Thomas started to work online, to rehearse online. For me, your work always was in the core of what's life in performance. It's based on organicity, on direct contact. When I witness, I had this privilege to witness your work with your team. You never spoke. You always touch the people's body to correct the position, the movement, the vibration of song. All these is rudimentarily live, not going online. So how it's possible that Thomas Richards rehearsed online?
Yes. Hello, everybody. I'll start with a story. One time I became sick. I had a health problem. It was when I was working with Grotowski. And I had to go to the United States, back home, to see doctors, and I had to separate from the work. And I would talk to Grotowski on the telephone. And on the telephone, our conversations would have, that he would lead somehow, would have a certain quality. And the quality would arrive into a moment of silence. And in that silence on the telephone, even though I couldn't see him and I can only hear very faintly his breathing, I could understand that something of the essence of the work, Dariusz, was taking place. I couldn't see, I could not hear, but that relation with the teacher, even just through the old telephone with no video, it existed. So, and these were very special moments, because the question became how to turn that circumstance, because it was a circumstance, right? I was sick. How to turn the circumstance to your advantage somehow. So the process, or the inner process of the work, which, okay, in our work, it's generally related to songs, but it relates to a kind of inner mobilization and a kind of transformation of energies and a transcendence, that this process could happen in silence. And so one starts to, in that moment, start to study and start to work on how it can happen in silence, how thought relates to it, how the physical action, the slight physical adjustments relate to it. So this kind of moment, somehow, which is what has happened to all of us, it's a collective circumstance, right? We're all hit by a kind of collective shock, right? The danger, like in any moment like this, would be that we do generalizations, right? That we create, the answer to this collective shock should be this, when of course all of our answers need to be individual. We all need to somehow creatively, individually try to respond to this shock. But we received the shock, right? It's like a shock which seems to be disturbing. It seems to be even tempting me to say, okay, I stop working for 4 months, 5 months, because it's impossible. Rather than that, because I remember Grotowski in this silence on the telephone, where something, despite all negative circumstance, was possible. So how is it possible to work on songs of tradition or not? Online with the team members became the question. Of course, it's very difficult, but somehow what was happening, so that you know our circumstance? We're not all alone. I don't know if you just saw, but Cecile, my wife, who's my assistant, is also in the team. She just came in the room. So we live together. So there are kind of mini teams inside the work center. There are 2 people who live together, and 2 people, and then 3 people, and then 6 people. So in my teams, we have 6 people who live together. So we have mini teams. So if these mini teams have their own work, where there's a leader inside the household, where those people are conducting the creative work, they're working on songs of tradition, and then we meet on the Google Meet. So for example, we meet on Google Meet and everyone's in a household, then we can, you saw songs of tradition several times, this kind of work on songs of tradition. How can that happen in Google Meet? Well, it's a very strange circumstance because I hear what goes on in my household, and then I mute the phone, and I hear what goes on in another household, and I sing with what goes on in the other household, and they sing with what goes on in my household, but they cannot hear me and when I am leading a song, and they cannot, I cannot hear them, or they cannot hear me when they're leading a song, and vice versa. So it's quite a new situation. It has the negative drawbacks, of course, obviously. But we discover certain things, Darek, it's incredible. One is that it's possible to perceive, even through the cell phone, it's possible to perceive the core of life, the objectivity of life. Like when the inner process is happening, when the transcendence is happening, Cecile and I were amazed. It's like coming off the little microphone of the cell phone, and it's coming into the room. It's quite amazing. And also, when we deviate and when the work is not done, we also feel it when it becomes mechanical. So we see that it's possible somehow to work on the objectivity of the work. So if it's possible, then that means something. It means there's a chance. And what's the chance? The chance is the problem itself. The chance is the obstacle itself. So exactly what you remarked, Darek, that when I work with the people, I will make interventions, right? I will touch the person. I'll give the indication. Also, in a very subtle sense, they will hear my voice. And the fact that they hear my voice means that they can adjust the vibratory quality to my vibratory quality. But now they don't have that. It's genius. It's a genius circumstance because they cannot hear me. They cannot hear me, yet they have to find on their own. And so it was an enormous test at this moment of lockdown for them. And they could really see, and I could really see from this strange distance, how they incarnate the work or don't incarnate the work. And we saw crazy things, Darek. We saw crazy things, which was, first, there are 16 people in the singing session. And I see, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. There's 16 people in the singing session, and 27% of the work doesn't work. These are very capable people. They're very gifted people. They're excellent, but there's like almost 1/3 doesn't work. So I think the problem is quantity. We have too many people in the singing session. So we go to smaller groups. 8 people. And always, magically, 1/3 is thrown off the yogic mat. Why is that? It's like 1/3 doesn't make it. 2/3 make it, 1/3 doesn't make it. So we start to go, oh my goodness, we are kind of in a reality where energetically transcendence, when the group is a certain quantity of people, transcendence will be allowed to happen if the fight is made really for 2/3, but 1/3, even if they're capable and completely competent, the negative energy will fall on them and they won't be able to accomplish. Oh my goodness. So then we started to understand that we need to prepare ourselves in another way because we started to see the mechanisms in the mind that were taking place. The mechanism is the mechanism of scapegoating. It's the fundamental of the destruction of every community. When you scapegoat another person, it's incredible. The mind is an incredible thing. No matter how progressive you think you are, no matter how much you think you have goodwill faced to other people, in some moment, in some fraction of a moment, your mind will wish the failure of another. It will wish that the other doesn't succeed. And like this, always there's 1/3 doesn't make it. Oh my God. So then after months of figuring this out, we said to ourselves, we've got to do some very, very, very radical test to force us into the fact of making it, all of us, into this sort of energetic world that is the work. So the test was this. It was very, very funny. If anybody makes a mistake, we're going to do a singing session. Everybody's going to do his action. If anybody makes a mistake, if anybody deviates in their yogic process, we go back to the beginning. We start again. And then we start again. If somebody deviates, we start again. So that everybody of the 16 people, we all bear on our shoulders the mechanisms that are inside the others. And it was incredible, Dariusz. Some singing sessions were going for 5 hours, 6 hours. Go back to the beginning, go back to the beginning, go back to the beginning. And then by the end of this, the kind of joy that appeared, the kind of, also this kind of walking on a tightrope in yourself, in your own mind, where you need to defeat and destroy moment after moment your own destructive projection onto another person. It took place. And then right before the summer holidays, which was very exciting, the team started to work with another consistency. So you see, it's very, very strange. We started to learn something about community. Because what is a community is a group of people, right? We're trying to do something. But it's like it works and then it partially fails. It works and it partially fails. In our case, it's a work on performing, a yogic work through performing. It works and partially fails. But we're not in community, and the moment of being not in community becomes the moment to discover something, hopefully when we can come back together, that will help us in what it is to be together.
Thank you so much. It's absolutely fascinating. Mario Biagini, that I talked to a week ago, told me that what you are all doing in Workcenter is study. To take this time, to take this free time with no performances, to study the very condition of performing. And as I see, it's also your experience that this is the time of this basic study, of basic research.
Yes. Well, I agree. The first speaker, Anna, she was saying that COVID really, for her, was a time to go back to somehow re-question, why am I doing what I do? And I think that's fundamental. Why do we do what we do? And so in our work, we've gone back to that question and seen that the work on art as vehicle, right? Where art is a vehicle for personal and interpersonal transformation. It's at the core. This is what I discovered with my team. It's at the essence of what we do. So, you know, Dariusz, what's very, very, very interesting for us is that COVID has thrown us into a circumstance somehow, which is similar to the beginnings of the work center, when there was no witnesses and no spectators. And the people who come into the work center now, who are very gifted for singing and very gifted for acting, they've never lived this moment. They do live the moment of art as vehicle when we are alone and we rehearse together. But they also live the moments of six months a year where we travel, where we perform for 100, 200, 250 people, and they are impregnated by that pressure, you know? When you perform, there's a pressure from the outside. You have other people's eyes that mobilize you. They make you ready. But when we were alone doing downstairs action, and when even Grotowski was not coming, it's just you face to the wall. There's only you and the wall. And then the question is, why do you sing? And the way that that question lands on your head is another thing. And in the COVID time, it's the same. You're alone in your house, and you're singing, and you're doing your line of actions. Why are you doing it? Who do you do it face to? And you know, it's one of the first questions Grotowski ever asked me. When I met him in California at the first workshop, he said to me, Thomas, when you're alone in your room, who are you acting for? And that's a question that COVID has put us all face to. Who are you doing for? And that's very, very interesting, because then you see the spectator. Where's the spectator? The spectator is all around you. It's inside of you. And there are many different kinds of inner spectators. That's incredible. There's the Thomas who wants to be loved. There's the Thomas who wants to be applauded. There's the Thomas who wants to be a star. There's the Thomas who wants to change the world. There's the Thomas who wants to, I don't know what, be faithful to his inner process, whatever. There's so many different selves. We can act from a certain self and towards something outside of us. I can even be in my room and I can be acting for my daddy. I can be in my room alone looking for the approval of my daddy. Or I can be alone in my room and I can be aiming towards something that's above me, something shining, something unknown, indescript, something beyond, something transcendent, for example, hopefully. So it threw us back. It threw all the younger members, they're not very young, but the people who are, they never experienced this, into a real crash. And I know for them it was very difficult. It was, and still is, because we don't know how we're going to get out of this somehow. But from my point of view, it's incredibly rich, really.
Thank you to all of the Thomas Richards that were speaking to us now. Just for a second, let's move on to Olena Apczel. If you can share with us your thoughts that are in a written form. So the floor is yours, Olena, if you can read to us now.
I have some problem. I tried to prepare a translation of my reflection, but I'm afraid that if I read for a long time, everything will get tried. Maybe I ask you, Pani Zofia, read my prepared translation, if you can, please.
Sure, of course I can, but let me open it.
Okay, I'm so sorry.
No problem, no problem.
We are moving now, I'm just trying to explain, we are moving from Tuscany to Kharkiv, to Ukraine, to think a totally different experience of COVID, because what we tried to do is to link together people from different parts of the world with different experiences. I think that our Polish experience is quite soft, I would say.
We met with Olena in Kiev 1 year ago, and she has different experience than all of us, because she took the part in the war in Donbass. She spends a few months there helping people, and this is the point of view. Her doing theater is what she's doing, and she's doing very interesting stuff. It means very strong, not in mainstream what in Ukrainian theater is going on, but her point of view, and because I wrote her text, what she sent to us, is very deep and strong, coming from her experience, and from, I hope that she will find some hope on this, on the end of this thought, on this idea, what she wants to bring us.
I'm ready to read Olena's text. I will start with general issues and I will end with my personal feelings. In my practice, I combine the work of a director and performer with the research work as an art critic. I have the impression that what the theater lost during quarantine actually had lost earlier. I mean, feeling of happiness, being in a group, community experience, sadness, joy, tragedy. When as a spectator you are in a solidarity with what the theater offers, you leave this solidarity in the group, and this physical closeness expands the potential of messages spoken from the stage. Such closeness, community, nesting, everyday rituals of intimacy have naturally gone out of fashion long ago, have become somehow a manifestation of bad manners. And European civilization, one way or another, has long been moving toward this separation. With spontaneous fairs, a variety of dialects and traditional funerals, this norm of incorrect closeness has disappeared. You can't just cry at the doctor when your leg hurts. Tell him how upset you are, that you hurt your knee. The doctor should just heal the leg. To discuss a difficult spiritual experience of damage, you need to see a psychotherapist, but only for 1 hour, which is paid. Refinement, norms, and prescriptions have broken the whole of our experience into separate clusters, and it forces us to create a complex search engine for a safe sensitivity. And safe sensitivity is, in my opinion, one of the most valuable conditions that theater can guarantee. Among the enthusiasts of alternative Ukrainian critical theater, the following question was raised throughout the spring and practically all summer. Does theater lose the depth of its messages if it goes into quarantine mode? And we often came out in discussions about the unpreparedness of theater for such flexibility. The circumstances of the quarantine are not a fault of the theater, but the fault of the theater may be perceiving the quarantine as a tool to kill theater. Because if the basis of theater is a reaction to reality and a dialogue with this reality, then theater is the last place that would have to deny this reality. I see it as the next logical step after all we've gone through: performativity, criticality, post-drama, community, avoiding a void, avoiding aestheticization, creating a new aesthetic, and so on. With online and Zoom performances, it is clear this was a necessary reactive response. Then you have to work more subtly with reality. Having been in isolation with some of my colleagues since April, we have tried to meet online once a week and share our reflections. We have created spontaneous tasks for ourselves. It was a live job with no idea, no program or hierarchy. And the question of the body, the flesh, became central. Maybe the distance and the desire to get closer. This is a challenge to physicality or body that will expand its possibilities. We can imagine working with a partner without touching, but with total focus on one on the other. From a distance, you will have to watch and listen more closely. The idea is somehow futuristic and in a way even esoteric. Sounds naive, but let me say it. When, after an active meeting on the Zoom platform, a person is left alone with a flat screen, this break and silence are often unbearable. Active watching in the theater cannot end so suddenly. There is always noise, conversations, returning home, car, metro, tired legs, shower, change of clothes. All these rituals are gone now. And the main question for me is how to replace, create, recreate, update new rituals of entering and exiting a show or performance. The most desirable quarantine place was the balcony. This unique space combines both private and public character. During these 6 months, the balconies took on strategic importance. At the same time, it is practically the only place of seclusion, apart from the toilet, for people who live together in small apartments. But at the same time, the balconies have become an area of socialization, safe conversations with neighbors, sometimes celebrations, and even concerts and performances. And I'm very curious which body is that body on the balcony. In conditions of isolation, the view from the window acquired a meaning that it had never before. The most pleasurable view in self-isolation is the sky and the distant horizon, where you can see both nature and urban planning. When the quarantine was eased in the summer, several Ukrainian theater staged open-air shows. And it wasn't just a reaction to the inability to play indoors. People really wanted to be out in nature, to look at the horizon while an actor gives a monologue. It seems to me that, just like in society, physical presence in theater is necessary. Theater is a ritual of being present. Maybe if theater finds an answer, how can we coexist in a pandemic, it will become a prototype for solving society's problems in the future. Freedom is a chance to see what cannot be predicted. Those who lived under the paradigm that anyone can plan their lives without relying on chance have received a huge a huge blow. But since the independent theater in Ukraine has existed and has survived in recent years and has always been stressed out, I can see a way out. It is a colossal experience of experiencing your own sensitivity, fragility, loss of freedom and control over your own life. And it seems to me that theater and actor are alive when they are vulnerable. It's okay to be powerless in a pandemic. It's even legal, so to speak. And maybe this thought is even more naive than the previous ones, but in a way I even like that all that is known is over. Theater cannot fail to change. And finally, about my personal experiences. In the spring, together with my colleague, we implemented the We project, as part of which we asked people to record short stories about their quarantine on the phone and send them to us. We got about 200 stories. These stories showed that isolation was nothing new for some people. People with disabilities, such as young mothers who had one or more maternity leaves, people who had received chemotherapy, or those who had movement disorders. All of them practically did not mention the stress of quarantine. On the contrary, I noticed that many of them became more perceptive and followed the developments with some interests. However, people who directly suffered during the war in Donbass turned out to be a special group: veterans, volunteers, internally displaced people. I myself come from Donbass. Most of my family is in Russia or the occupied territories, and for some time I was a medical volunteer at the front. And all the tension that arose over the quarantine for me, and for many of those I spoke to, seemed 10 times less intense. Now, in spring, there was so much talk about the stress of uncertainty. I lost my job, I had 4 projects cancelled, and I have no idea about my next year. And after all, my body does not escape from fear. Earlier, it was difficult for me to find a common language when working with people who were not affected by the war, because war leaves you with a special split in consciousness that is difficult to explain. But now that I start working with an actor who unknowingly demonstrates the anxiety of a pandemic with his body and mind, I have to put up with it. I don't feel like we have one field of communication, but probably this part of my monologue means everything is relative. I think, at the end, that a protected, prosperous world which guarantees security brings more stress than a world where stress is unfortunately the norm. The stress that does not destroy, but strengthens us. Perhaps our task is to detect stressors that will act as a stimulus and allow them to happen in the theater, deconstruct it and put it back together. That was what we chosen for a longer monologue written by Olena. Would you like to add anything to it, Olena?
Mogę po polsku odpowiadać, bo będę problemy, jak ja zacznę.
Okay,
Bardzo
I
dziękuję,
will try
że
to
pomogliście
translate.
mnie. Naprawdę przepraszam, że tak jest, bo zestresowałam trochę z czytaniem.
I'm really sorry, I was stressed with my English reading.
Nie usłyszałam, przepraszam.
Ja próbuję tłumaczyć na żywo, także proszę mówić, ja będę próbował tłumaczyć. Okay, nie słyszy mi się?
Słyszysz nas, Olena?
Może ja będę, bo ja ją dobrze słyszę. Okay. To jak będziesz mówiła po polsku, to ja mogę po angielsku.
Bardzo dziękuję. Dobra.
My też.
Aha, to muszę odpowiadać na jakieś pytanie, tak? Bo tego nie usłyszałam.
Zapytałam na koniec, po przeczytaniu twojego głosu, czy chciałabyś jeszcze do tego teraz coś dodać po polsku?
Nie, tylko zmienić trochę charakter mówienia ostatnich zdań, bo chodzi nie o czymś takim, że to jest niedobrze, że ten stres coś dobudowuje, tylko w tym ostatnim chciałam powiedzieć, że doświadczenia stresu jakiegoś innego poprzed teraz daje dziwną radość od uczucia tego, jaki stres nam zostawia kwarantanna. Naprawdę odczuwam czasami takie podniesienie.
Pozwólmy przetłumaczyć.
Okay, okay, now. I would rather correct the expression of the last chapter of what I have written, because it was not about that. What I wanted to express was that the previously experienced trauma or stress adds a certain hint to our experience of pandemic now, and this is not stressful anymore, but it adds something special, and it makes it be different.
Czyli po prostu, że ja do siebie zawsze mówię ostatnie te parę miesięcy, jak z tego czerpiać, tak? I to najpierw takie pytanie, co wziąć na szybko teraz, jak energia rozwinięcia, ale nie myślenie, jak zmienić, jak wyjść, jak przeżyć, żeby w ogóle tych zdań nie istniało.
So what I say to myself during last months is like, what can I get from the situation I'm in? And before I will start to think, how can I correct the situation? It's rather about what can I derive from it, what can I obtain, and how can I use it maybe, yes.
I parę tygodni już zaczęliśmy pracę nad nowym spektaklem i było bardzo śmiesznie, jak na pierwszych próbach aktorzy mieli takie bardzo smutne wyrazy i coś mówili o tym przeżyciu. I to było bardzo dziwnie, bo tak naprawdę nikt nie myślał i już na końcu próby wszyscy zrozumieli, że ten ból to trochę takie teatralne, bo wszyscy mieliśmy ciężkie życie wiosną i latą, to musimy to jakoś prodemonstrować. A tego naprawdę nie było ni u kogo, naprawdę.
So the funny thing was that when we have started a few weeks ago a new work, and at the beginning everybody demonstrated hard feelings about the last months that we have passed in being posed, and so we knew that we had a difficult experience and we wanted to express this difficult experience, show our experience to others, and at the end we realized that this is not true actually about anyone, that at the end we were already happy, so there was rather like an obligation to have this trauma, post-pandemic trauma, than a real presence of this very difficult experience.
No i dla mnie jest to ciekawe, ten fenomen demonstracji ciężkiego życia. Teraz jego tak doświadczam i badam.
So for me, it's now what is now interesting is this phenomena of that we all demonstrate this our difficult life, like that we share difficulty of our life. Like this is what I'm researching right now.
To wszystko. Bardzo dziękuję, Anna, za dopomogę.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Anna. And I think, but this is the moment we should move to the other hemisphere, to Brazil, to Bahia, to Maciej Rożalski, because as we know, Brazil was heavily touched or attacked by this pandemic. Also because of political situation in the country. So could you please tell us from the insider point of view, what's your experience of this disease and the whole situation in Brazil, and how it affected your work, but also your thinking about performance, about culture performances also? We cannot hear you, Maciej, we cannot hear you. Unmute yourself.
First thing, it's very funny to see my name with Brazil. And this is like big question the last time for me. Where is this Brazil? Where is this Poland? And I'm telling that truly I live on the ocean in the middle, you know, because I'm not Polish, 100%, never will be 100 Brazilian. So it's like Afro-Atlantic theory of the Paul Gilroy is telling about these moments of continuous meeting, continuous changing. So it was a funny moment. First of all, we have this custom here in Brazil, in Bahia especially, to ask permission, to ask excuse everybody here to talk, the more older and younger, and to be here. I want to say that it's great this meeting and this how it's in English? Invitation, yeah. Sometimes some words are going out. This invitation, I'm very happy that I'm here. I'm here. Here or where? I'm here in Brazil, but I'm also with you. And so this is great to share with you, yeah. Especially in this like Atlantic situation, let's say, yeah? And to see where are we in this map, in our map. So, Darek, I'm trying to think about your questions and also about our speak with Tomek. I started to talk with him on the beach, and we stayed like 1 hour talking on the beach. And after this, I thought, my God, I stopped the guy who was on the holidays, taking the sun 1 hour talking with me. I hope that Tomek is not not angry with me, but we was thinking about a lot of things, you know, a lot of questions which I think are going a little bit out also about from the theater, yeah. And also as I heard yesterday from this wonderful talk with Mario Biagini, and they are going out from the theater, but the theater is going inside of some situation, yeah. And I don't know if I will talk as you expect, but I want to talk some things. I'm here also. I heard a lot Olena talking. It was very great. It's important to hear her voice from Ukraine. And I think my voice a little bit like this, you know. And this we are talking also a little bit about the center and periphery situation, yeah. And I think this is the one of the very important questions also for the art today, which we have to answer, or we have to think also, yeah. This is a moment of study. It's great that we have this luxury of the study, you know. I have this luxury. I'm safe, thanks God. But also the study in the situation of in the war situation, yeah, in the guerrilla situation, as I'm talking here in Brazil, cultural guerrilla situation, and we need to talk about it widely and publicly and openly. So I will start talking about the subject. I think I will focus giving some numbers. In 217, in Brazil, died from assaults, was murdered 70,000 people. Okay, in the Iraq, all the war of Iraq, died like 112. I'm not comparing that it's better or worse or something, you know. But so only about the think about the numbers. In 1 year, it died people like on the big war, you know. First thing. Second thing, we have 120,000 people died from COVID. Third fact, yesterday appeared in newspaper new information. One of the lot new information that there was some transfers on Bolsonaro banking accounts some years ago, from mafia boss in Rio de Janeiro. And he said, so what? So what? There was, so what, you know. So we live here in the situation of so what. And I think in some kind of normalization of the situation, theatrality of this situation, you know. So I'm still thinking last time about the Theodor Adorno asking after the Second Year, after the Second Mondial War, how we can make poetry after the Auschwitz, you know. And this question is coming back from me last times, you know. How can I from this luxury situation of professor, I receive my money, I'm in house in the forest, wonderful, but this is a question which I think Olena also a little bit asked. I don't want to be upset. I want to take this thing and make, you know, and this is interesting voice, a little bit from the margins, maybe a little bit. I'm provoking a little bit here. So this is it. I want to try to put some examples here, because I don't want only to say how it's bad, you know, because everybody knows how it's bad. But what we are doing in this situation, what is happening in this situation, is extreme situation. Yeah, it's an extreme situation. Here in Brazil, it's an extreme situation. We are in the war with authoritarianism, fascism, which is gaining, you know. University is still here, and we are here. Strong defense of university. It was one of the strongest Lula and Haddad and others gain in the last years. They planted the map of the federal universities, which are very strong, and so they can't cancel it. So it's strange and funny to say, but we are like first line of the defense of the democracy now in this moment, you know. And from this situation, I was thinking about some Brazilian and South America performers and artists. I'm thinking about the performance of Paulo Nazaret. I don't know if you know this artist. He was famous because he walked all South America walking. Yeah. And he was working with one of these questions, very important here, of the center and periphery. Yeah? How the periphery, how it situates and how to resituate this central map, and how it decentralizes. Okay, and he made some provocations. It's quite famous provocation. He was invited in 2015 for a Biennale in Venezia. And he said, no, I don't want to go. I'm not going. I will make my proper Venezia. He found some small city in Brazil, and the name of the city is Venezia. Okay, so he went to some space, church, I don't know, something, and he makes him presentation there with the Zoom. With the transmission, and he's working a lot with reconstruction, the meanings. It was amazing because he put a lot of names of the products which big companies took from the Indians' names and put it in the different situations. It's like some cookies which has name of the Indian tribe. And he creates like a big flag of this tribe, you know, with this cookie's name, you know, and he is discussing of this question, you know. So for me, this is like there are a few questions here. Like first is this anthropological and post-colonial question. It's very actual today. Again, the center of the peripheries, and the second. The second question is yes. This is what we, I think in South America is very characteristic for works in South America. What is original, what is copy? Yeah? What we own profound and what we are copying, but in this moment, this way of rethinking the thing, you know, reconstructing and redefining this. There was a big movement of tropicalism here, which was based on the devoration, idea of cultural devoration, yeah, which we took from the Indians. Yeah, so we are devorating the cultural bodies, yeah, of original ideas, recreating new originality from the pieces, from the small pieces of the product. And I think this third thing is very interesting, very important for the situation where I want to talk. It's the focus on small thing, on simple thing, of thing which is, we call him in Portuguese bobo. Yeah? Bobo is like play, like bobo is like play of the child play, you know. So Paulo Nazar and many others is focused on this. And I'm thinking last time a lot of this small big situation, macro and big. Because what is happening in Brazil and South America, we have just now in this moment political censure. But it is very specific. It's very crazy. It came from the Bannon. I think Richard can talk a lot about this. From this idea to put so much fake that everything is mixtured. Reality, fake, craziness. You know, we have the big movement here of terraplanistas. It's called the people who believe that Earth is plane. And how is possible? We have photographs of the ball. You know, we have photographs. No, but in front of me it's plane. And fuck you. I don't want to hear nothing. You can prove me because we have this thing in front of us. You know, and discussion is over. You know, so this is another spectacle. It's another performance which is going directly into the Richard Schechner theory. You know, this political performance. Yeah? And in this situation, telling some truth, telling some critique, it's nearly impossible. You know, Bolsonaro there was proof that his child, Flavio Bolsonaro, spelled like last 4 years, 1,500,000 reals. It's a lot of money, you know. Probably they killed the Marielle Franco. There are strong proofs for this. So what? You know? I don't know if I can talk a little bit more, or you want.
We would like to move. We would like to move further to the next speaker, and then we can come back after.
So only give me the one sentence in the finish, okay? So to close all the situation, because I'm talking about the simplicity, and so on the one side we have this political censure of a lot of information, make some kind of performance, but okay, what I want to say, maybe I will talk about this later, about the practical performance, day by day performance. I don't know how it's in other countries, but here it's more and more popular to start to create small communities, small performatic communities, which meet each other on Zoom, on Google Meet, or some other possibilities, and to meet for training. or to meet for talk, or to cry and to love, you know, a lot of things. I am participating too of performative communities like this. So what was the question, main question of this festival, I think, is there something more deeper than this liveness of body situation? And here I think we meet something, because I think there is a lot of Zoom, a lot of Google Meet. Wow, we watch every 5 minutes like new live amazing Google Meet situation. Yeah? And after 7 minutes, then 10 minutes, we turn off it. But there are some situations where when we meet with somebody with so much faith that I have to give something for him, and he receives something from me. And this faith, I think, it's more deeper. This faith of the spectacle, of faith of actor, of faith of the director. You know, when we are coming with, I think Grotowski talking a lot about this. When we are going with this strong ethical will of being for somebody.
I'm sorry, we have to say goodbye to Anna.
I have to say goodbye. Thank you very much, and I will see the rest on the recording. It was lovely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye. So now I would like to move to the upper part of this hemisphere where Brazil is, to Richard Schechner, to the United States. We are all curious about your perspective from the source, from the core of performance studies. How do you see the situation of pandemic?
Can you all hear me? So I really appreciated what everybody said, and there's a lot of comments to be made about it. And I have some notes here, having listened to you. And I realize the time has flown by. We're at 11:10, 11:15 already in New York, so we only have about 45 minutes left. But a couple of things, a couple of observations, and then I'll try to get to some theory. I've been wondering from the beginning of this, what's the big deal? Not from Trump's perspective. I hate Donald Trump, we'll deal with that. But what's the big deal? Because every year more people die of malaria. More people die of dysentery on a daily basis. AIDS is still raging in Africa. Nobody seems to think too much about it. Every once in a while, Ebola, certain deadly plagues arise. Clearly, this COVID gets our attention because it hits the global north, because it does involve the United States as the, quote, epicenter, because it does involve Europe, Spain, Italy, etc., because it came probably from China, which is a hugely emerging, aggressive, I don't know if it's first world or what, but it's a hugely important place. The plagues of Africa, the plagues of interior Brazil, these plagues, ordinary plagues, which take hundreds of thousands, millions of people each year, do not concern us. So to some degree, the COVID is a creation of social media, is a creation of news, and is a creature of advanced capitalism, the attention paid to it. Not the disease, but the attention paid to it. Because if we were to pay such attention, if we were to say what diseases wipe out more people per year, what diseases are rampant, we would be, putting all this effort into stopping malaria or dysentery. Those are the two huge ones, and finishing with the AIDS. Okay, so I put that there because it does connect, and I'm glad that Maciej brought in the politics. Black Lives Matter, Donald Trump, the United States, the incompetence, and more than incompetence, the downright evil of our government and the United States, which as an idea for so long, the idea of democracy, the idea of some kind of movement towards rule of law is under stress, under threat. So Bolsonaro and Trump and Putin are three great friends, and Xi Jinping in his own way, also in a different way. And I look at you, Darek, Rajak, I look at everybody except for Thomas, and I say, you know, what kinds of systems of government have you been living under and in the last 50 years? So that the rule of law is by no means guaranteed in this world, nor is it the majority, nor are the majority of the people in this world ruled by rules of law. They're ruled by rules of late capitalism, corporatism, political cronyism, all of this, which we know. And we, unhappily, we also know that Marxism is not really the solution to that, because once Marxism got operative, you know, if the Soviet Union, China, if that's the model of the operations of Marxism, who wants to live under those systems as such? Materially, perhaps, but ideologically, perhaps not. So it's not like we have in the world a model anymore of where we want to go. That's really important. And when we think about art, we have to think in those terms. All right, so I'm going to set that aside. I want to move to point 2. There's a Latin phrase by Horace, vita brevis ars longa. Life is short and art is long. In other words, this situation with COVID, now forget what I just said, all the political stuff, but this situation with COVID is really a flash in the pan. It is really temporary. 10 years from now, it won't matter. And 10 years in the history of humankind is not a very long time. When the Great Plagues hit Western Europe during the 14th century, 1/3 of the people were killed. When they hit London, you know, what theater there was closed. And then 3 years later, it opened. The bubonic plague, of course, occurred in London before the great era of the theaters. But the entertainments, you know, the similar situation. So we have to think of the transformation from what we are now forced to do to what we will voluntarily do in a reasonably short amount of time, historically speaking. A very short amount of time, historically speaking. So what I am seeing around me is the welcoming, as I've heard from the presentations, the welcoming of certain opportunities that this gives us under a kind of quarantine, forced opportunities. But then the question will be, what do we want to carry forward? So I thought that Thomas's presentation of what his teams were doing was brilliant. Okay, Thomas, I don't want you to answer immediately because I have a lot more to say, but go ahead, 3 years. To what degree are you going to continue distance listening? In other words, when you're no longer forced to do this, when you're no longer fear for your life to do this, when you're no longer told by all the media around you that this is what you ought to do, what will you do? What will we do? You know, it's one of the ironies, of course, that Trump has kind of ignored this, and hundreds of thousands, 180,000 Americans have died, and 5 million have this. At the same time, I have this sense of, you know, life needs to go on. A live life needs to go on. In my own, so that's the question for Thomas and for all of you. What will you carry forward after this is over? Okay, put that aside. Third point. The idea of interacting at a distance preceded in a big way COVID. In other words, social media, Facebook, Twitter, etc. All of that was around before COVID came. And what these tools, which also help us experience COVID, of course, but what these tools gave us is the ability to appear to be intimate at a distance. I'm not just talking about sexting and all of that, but other kinds of intimacy, like we're doing now. It's really comfortable for me to sit in my beautiful study, to look over to Poland, to look to Brazil, to look to Italy, to look to Ukraine. And I say, that's fabulous. But of course, I could have done that 3 years ago, because that's exactly what social media does. And social distancing, intimacy and social distancing is something we learned about, over the last 20 years. And now we're putting into action, but it's something we learned about quite some time ago. And during the time it was not forced, during the time that I could go to the theater or to a conference or to a restaurant or to a film, all those things, or just simply a friend's house who I haven't seen for a long time, and not wear a mask, not stay 6 feet apart. During those times, I would go there. And why? I think that what social media cannot provide are the senses which I've worked so hard to bring up along with sound and sight, because hearing and seeing is what social media is all about, what we're doing. I can't touch you, of course, but neither can I smell you, and neither can I taste you. And when I'm in a theater or in a restaurant or in any of those social places, these other senses, let's call them the 3 more sensuous senses, because hearing is at a slight distance and seeing is at a vast distance. I can look through a telescope to billions of years ago and billions of miles, but I can only smell at a few hundred feet, and I can only taste literally the length of my tongue, and I can only touch the length of any of my limbs. And so these things I deeply, deeply miss. I deeply miss. My eroticism, even at my advanced age, is not simply a sexual eroticism of a sexual partner, my wife, whatever, but it is the eroticism of knowing I can engage my taste, my touch, and my smell with yours. So I really miss it. A couple of more things that I'd like to note. To some degree, we have all become Buddhists at this moment because we've become present-centered, entirely present-centered. It wasn't the Buddha who told us, don't think of the past, don't think of you, we become present-centered. So I'm kind of putting forward a proposal for a little anti-Buddhism. Let's remember the past, and that people have gone through huge plagues and terrible crises, not to mention wars, which are, the difference between a plague and a war is we identify a plague with religion, God gave it to us, nature gave it to us. We identify wars with our own stupidity and greed. But in terms of disruption, war is a kind of social disease of humanity. Let's put it that way. I don't think of war as separate from our biosocial system. It's something that primates, struggle for hierarchy and territory and sexual privilege and so on. Wars play this out. We have to grasp these things in their larger dimensions and wrestle with them. So we are, I would urge us to set aside for the moment some of our Buddhism, that is, some of the fact that we are now living in this and we think we're going to live in it forever, while 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years is not forever. So what do we do when it comes back? Now, finally, because time is, I do think we can learn a lot from these experiences. I do think that this kind of conferencing is so much better than present a paper, listen, I'm talking academically as a professor now. I think we should we should stop having conferences that have this kind of formal presentation and have a lot more Zoom conferences and things of this sort. To paraphrase Mao, let 100 types of conferences flower. Let's have different ways. I also feel that when we do come back, we should not simply give up the kind of performance like Thomas. You should not give up the distance performance, but make it as an additional part of the repertory. In other words, it enriches what we can do with the tools of social media. I also think, and I've heard of some performances that have done this, that we can engage the other senses at a distance. In other words, if I ask everybody at the thing to take a glass of water or liquid and to taste it collectively, it's not quite the same as if I put it in your hands, but I think that some of these performances can involve people getting props and things and certain kind of touching. What if this hand was your hand, Oriana, and this hand is my hand? Reach your hand out, please. Yes. Now, how close can you get? How close can you? Oh, come down a little bit. Well, come. No, I'm not in there. And if we can start to play with these, with what we have available to us, and I feel that, yes, on the one side, there are the Trumps of the world, the Bolsonaros, and the move to populism and fascism. I'm fearful of it. But on the other side, and what we haven't emphasized, is the playfulness of all this. That, if you go back and read Boccaccio, who wrote the Decameron at the moment of the plague, he described exactly our reactions. He said, some people have decided to leave the cities, and some people have closed their doors and just stay by themselves. And some people party because they know there's nothing else to do and they're going to die anyway. Now, I'm not advocating that we party because we're going to die anyway, but I am advocating that we party a little bit more, that we bring a little bit more of play into this circumstance. Okay, let me see if there are any other notes that I've made on the relationship to what you've said. Social media, yes. No, that's about what I would like to say. I want to repeat that I really appreciated what the speakers before me had to say, and Derek, for organizing and bringing this all together, and Tomasz, and so I thank you for it. But so those are my thoughts. They may seem a little bit chaotic, but I'm speaking from my heart and immediately without having written anything down.
It was really great. Thank you so much. We still have some time. It's not that we have only half an hour. We still have an hour and a half. If you have enough power to stay with us. But now I would like to ask one of Thomas's that are here with us.
Can we take a 1 minute pause for? I to be frank about it, I've got to go to I got to urinate, so I've got to have a minute and a half before I can go back.
Of course.
You can either go on without me or wait for me to come back. But
okay. Czy Państwo chcecie krótką przerwę? Na oddech? Nie. Okay. So, Tomek.
Thank you for the invitation to our discussion. I listened to your speeches about personal and professional experiences. Okay.
Bądź bliżej, tak.
Could you hear me at the moment?
Bardzo blisko.
Okay. When I listen to your speeches about personal and professional experiences, I think that we have here probably 3 parts of problems: space, media, and society. For me, very interesting was the first topic, because one of the speakers said that we have at the moment a new situation of something like hybridization of the space, that we connected the space of our bodies, image spaces and social spaces. And at the moment I think about voice of Thomas Mitchell, which said that the images which at the moment, images and visual media are for us transmitter for our bodies, for our voices and experiences. They could make the connections between us because we are not at the same physical space. Mitchell said that the images are like viruses, like COVID, and also they like clones, because images could make proliferation, and they also mutate, they change itself, and they also change our our speeches and our bodies. And second for me is this topic, second important topic for me is society, because during first month quarantine, during lockdown, I think about it, what is a society at the moment. And for me, there are two different characteristics which proliferate in the speeches of the people which I connect by the media. The first was that community at the moment is a web of affect-laden relationship among the groups and individuals, and this is these things which we try to make by social media, but sometimes it's impossible. And the second characteristic, that the society at the moment is a set of shared values, norms, meanings, sometimes shared histories and identities, and it is connected with as a group of believers that the society still exists, and the society performed at the same time when we couldn't connect in physical space. So we believe that the hospital performed when we didn't see it. We believe that policy in our cities with pollution, rubbish still exists when we didn't see it. Because we connected by the social media, we see only our gardens on the balcony, we heard only these personal messages. But Richard Schechner said that at the same moment we see something like a global connection, global change. At the same time we have our small personal experiences, and in between are the space of our recognition, which is incompatible if this first and the second form. And it's also a part of this space hybridization. Only at the moment I think that if you remember that at the beginning of this COVID situation, when the Boris Johnson, Prime Minister of Great Britain, was ill, he changed his mind, because he said that there is really such thing as a society, and there was a connection with, of course, this famous sentence of Margaret Thatcher, that there is not thing like a society. I think that the same moment, the society in the first and the second message is absolutely different thing. Because the society which we believe, we are believers in society, is absolutely different from experience, the former experience and the contemporary experience, because in the contemporary situation, the main meaning is that our obligation is a social distancing. At the same moment, we try to believe that society still existing during we try made this obligation. Maybe it's all for the moment, because I'm very nervous.
Tomek brought some, I would say, a pessimistic hint towards what you all said, because I must say I'm quite surprised that most of your comments were quite optimistic, that you found some kind of discovery, some knowledge, some fun, as Richard proposed, also some playfulness in the COVID situation. I must say that my experience is also optimistic. I was really happy to hear Anna speaking about her finding more freedom to explore herself more time. It was for the first time after 15 years when I stayed without any break for 3 months at my home. Before that, I was traveling all the time. As you know, I'm traveling all the time. And COVID stopped me. And I think that for many people, being stopped, of course it was kind of shock, but at the same time it was some kind of happy moment of, as Thomas said, rediscovering this very first initial situation of being alone and asking this basic question, whom I am performing for, why I'm doing this. And connecting this question to the question Richard asked, what are we going to continue after this forced lockdown will finish? We all hope it will finish soon. But are we going, and this is the question, are we going to come back to the usual routine? Am I going to come back to traveling all the time with my family without me? Or will we learn something from this experience? There will be some joyful knowledge taken out of this experience. And I'm thinking about Tomasz Rodowicz, who told me when we met yesterday, the very first sentence Tomek told me was, you know, this festival is a success. And I'm really happy that it's happening. It's a real success. I know that Tomek was very afraid of what's going to happen, but now another kind of joyful knowledge.
It's simple because we never had so many audience during our festival. It's middle of the festival, and now we have something around 3,500 audience virtual, and live, I don't know, because a few hundred. It means that through this strange situation, when we cannot sit close to each other, when all the time after every event we should clean every space, we should check, everybody is obligated to write down if he's not sick and he's not temperature, etc. All these procedures select the group of people coming here, because we cannot take more than 50 or 100 if it's concerts tonight, that more. But at the same time, through all this technology and big work of our friends to connect us with the world around, we feel like we are in very strong connection, and we have very strong reaction. But we don't do only online, because, for example, we are making for small group kind of real performance, and then we are doing not registration, but through the art, film art, what is Rami, our filmmaker, every time doing. We are doing another way of communication, communicate to what is the art, or what is the proposal, what is the thinking here. It means we have double way of working, direct in the theater, what is possible, and this what is possible to transmit through another way of thinking, another way of watching. It's through film, the same piece of art. And this gives us new tools. I don't want to stay with this forever, because this task and our need, and like Richard told, this I miss smell of my actors. I miss all this touching. I miss all this real life. But the way to do it is just to compare, to use all technology and all this possible direct contact, looking for, even the way how Tomasz is working. Every tools collect to look for the what is the humanity in this strange world? What is the essence of our being here? For what we are doing this? For what to leave for new generation? Lost young people, they really looks like completely lost. And this is the moment that I never expect from this festival, done very strong and strange conditions, and through hard work of all our friends, it's give the new hope that we survive with some values, some quality.
Richard, do you?
Yeah, I want to just one very brief thing and then one response to that. You know, in social media, when something gets widely dispersed, we say it's going viral, and it's kind of interesting to think that that word is used, and virtual. But okay, one of the things about, you asked about travel and festivals and so on. Now, from the business perspective, there's going to be less business class travel by business people, et cetera, et cetera. But in our world, the festivals are so very important, not only because of what goes on in terms of the performances, but because of the socializing. You know, even in the regular theater going, what goes on in the cafe, what goes on afterwards when you go out and discuss things, how you meet, and, you know, all of that kind of interaction. When we have interaction this way, it's good, but it's highly, in terms of algorithm, there's not as many possibilities. There are 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people. There are some people out there watching, one person left. But if you have 500 people at a festival and they intermingle, algorithmically, the number of possible interactions is astronomical. And that is extremely, extremely productive artistically. When I said Vita brevis ars longa, part of the irony is, you know, we have to think of the fecundity of socialization in generating new art, how people met each other. I mean, if we went back to Thomas Richards, how he got to California, his relationship to his father, who I knew quite well, who lived a different life, but a life in the theater, and was, you know, at NYU and the O'Neill Center. These things don't just happen because they're structured or monitored by Facebook, social media, or any other electronic stuff. They happen face to face. And what I like about, what I love about theater and about performance, because obviously I'm a performance theorist, not just a theater theorist, but what I love about performance is its indeterminacy because of the incredible number of possibilities that occur through random socialization. So I am very much looking forward to the vaccine, to anything that will allow for random socialization. I want to bump into somebody and not be afraid, and I feel that is what has, you know, it's a long chain, but that's the root of creativity, is socialization. You can only be alone. You can only, you know, in the Hindu, Buddhist, in the tradition, you become an ascetic at the end of your life, not at the beginning of your life. Only after having socialized can you withdraw and meditate. If you withdraw and meditate too soon, you dry up. So that's it. I'm looking forward to random socialization and the return to rampant promiscuity.
We'll try to give you a glimpse, a fragment of what is gone. Of course, it would be absolutely lovely to have you all here and to have this unpredictable discussion and talk after this official public event. And really, we all are sorry that it won't happen. We won't go together to the cafe here in Fabryka, and we won't be talking to you after this panel, but still we have some people who are with us alive. You cannot see them, but we can ask them to join our discussion.
Please.
So if you would like to give a comment, to ask questions, the floor is yours. Możemy pomóc z tłumaczeniami, jeżeli Państwo macie problem z angielskim, to też możemy służyć. Zdjęcie maski.
I just want to remind you that it's more than half a century already.
We don't.
Now, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I have to shout. Okay, I'm not happy to that. I just remind you that this is more than half a century where performing arts used different technological tools to build up the community of participants, of viewers, not present on site, but just taking different places. Just to remind Douglas Davis and his television performances, engaging the audience into quite personal relationships. There is networks, telematic art of Roy Ascott from early 70s, and Rabinowitz, and so on and so on. So actually there is not, I would say, something very new for performing arts, just to struggle with this particular situation. I think that the difference is that artists previously I'm referring to, they just made such a choice. They wanted to develop telematic relationships, to build the audiences around the world, just breaking the space distances. Nowadays, many artists who never thought about doing such things are obliged to think about something. But this is for such artists good time to reflect. What actually is in theater we can place into this unusual situation which can keep theater alive, or performing arts alive, or maybe stronger, maybe better acquainted to the new expectations, because we are living on quite recently, there was performance here, iGeneration, about how to deal with the new world where direct contact not necessarily mean the contact, touch contact. Direct contact maybe between Kharkiv and Łódź, New York City and Łódź. Sandy Stone in the early 1990s, wrote in one of her books that in cyberspace we still meet each other. We still manage to create face-to-face contacts, but we have to define what does it mean nowadays to meet someone. What does it mean today to meet someone face-to-face? Because the older definitions actually are not valid anymore. We can't simply distinguish between, if someone is on Zoom, there's no direct contact. This is mediated contact. No, it might be direct. There is a difference between sending emails and talking to someone on Zoom. There are technologies. So in the early 20th century, theater creators, they had to challenge the impact of cinema. And I remember in one of my books, I quoted Sergei Radlov from the late 20s, saying that what we usually did in a theater can be made much better in film, especially when film start using sound, become colorful and so on. So most of the theater performances could be replaced with cinema screenings. But Radloff told in that time that there's something, cinema never has direct contact between actor and audience. So we should build theater performance and this particular theatrical experience on this relationship. But we can say this now. It doesn't work anymore. And this is just the challenge. And I think for people making traditional forms of theater, it's a challenge to rethink everything about this, to maybe initiate the new approach to this. Thank you.
Yeah, but most of performance cannot be replaced. In other words, if you're talking about performance on a proscenium stage, on a picture stage, then obviously you can do that on Zoom and all because that's a picture. But what I see mostly are, the participatory things that Thomas does, performance art, site-specific performances. And that means that the place is so important. Participatory performances, I mean, these have exploded so that the performances that take place on fixed stages with fixed seating is, I think, the minority of theatrical performances. The majority of it is much more diverse, participatory, and inclusive, and cannot be reduced to sight and sound in that kind of rectangular frame. It just can't be. And that's been a huge change from the time that I was a young man, and almost all of what we would call theater was on the proscenium stage, then became the radical so-called arena stage. And then Jerzy's great work of constructing the spaces for each performance. And by now that is the vast world. And this is just art performance. And once you put the frame of as performance, and you can look at anything as a performance, then of course the whole world is that. And I would not like, I enjoy these new media, of course, and use it, of course, but I wouldn't like to be deceived into thinking that it is a substitute. It's like telling some young child that the menu is the meal. The menu is not the meal. And this is not what we are socially, spiritually, and biologically designed for. This is part of what we can extend ourselves to use, but what we're designed for and the way we reproduce, both artistically and actually, is by contact.
I'd like to go back a little bit to this thought that, I mean, thank you for reminding us that it's not all that new, and I think we tend to say that it's a new situation from a very particular reason. It's not because we forgot the history of media, history of art and stuff. We know that these things happened, but for some reason we also want something very new to happen. We want the new reality to happen somehow. For the couple of years, more than 20 years, we cannot make this big shift or make this big change, social change, economical change to happen by ourselves. And I think many people, including me, hope that this pandemic will disrupt us, and we hope that this can have this power to change something profoundly, because it's not human, because human beings or people, especially the ones that decide mostly on what's going on, are not capable or don't have the desire to change something really. So I think what Olena said, that on one rehearsal they started, or you started to perform the sadness, perform the trauma, although you didn't actually feel it on a very deeper level, or objectively nothing really changed, or you can still live more or less the way you used to live. I think it also shows that we have this urge to perform the change before the change really happens, we need to like establish our social reality somehow through this performing of trauma to believe that this pandemic, which is maybe a minor thing, is actually the spark that we needed to really change something on a deeper level. And when you say Darek, that you're optimistic, and actually that these voices that we heard today are kind of optimistic, that we have time to reflect, that we have time to meditate, we have time to, work on new medias more and stuff. I feel sad. I think we need to really make it somehow, or maybe even fake it as a really serious situation, to let the spark happening, let the spark working, and that we feel that the change is happening, and we will follow it somehow, because I don't know why, but we cannot do it ourselves for many years.
I think about this, which said Richard here. I agree that this is not new situation, because absolutely telematic presence is from us for many years. Human civilization is based on technological ground, not on only organic ground. It's absolutely true, but I think that at the moment we need something like scalary, because this which we means that is direct connection and which is mediated connection, maybe at the time they change each other in moments. For example, I said that during our connection by the media we are in the hybrid space, and it's for me absolutely important, because it's both body space and image space at the same time. Because during my connection with student seminar group, for example, I ask them questions, I answer of their questions. At the same time, I think that I have to close my doors from my room, because I heard rumor from my water closet from my neighbor. At the same time. I at the same moment in the virtual space, in something like Foucault's heterotopic, because in my room I invited parts of the spaces, room of my pupil from his books, and another my pupil from his chair and his dog, and sounds of their neighbors, his neighbor and their neighbors at the same time. And also at the same time, I heard about my children, which are learned by media in next room, my wife in the kitchen, and my, of course, neighbor in his water closet. So it's something like distraction, of course, but at the same time, I learned, I'm training to be both in these several spaces, control my sound space, my space behind my back, control discussion which connected these small rooms on my screen. So my point is that absolutely we have this new media, and they are not new, really new, but at the same time our experience socializing by this media produce the society by this media is relatively new, because we have to, at the moment, from these several months, to transport our former cultural and social techniques into the new spaces, or we have made this, perform our techniques in different spaces at the same time.
Maciej, please.
Can you speak a little bit?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was going after this plan which we received, that there will be 2 different blocks, but I think it's going as one block of discussion. Yeah. So because I left some parts of what I wanted to say for the second part, and also I think I wasn't understood in some points directly, and I wanted to comment what Richard told. What will stay? Yeah, what will stay? What will bring for future? Yeah, and also comment a little bit of this question of what is real, what is not real. Yeah, it appears here also that we are not this real situation. Here in South America, we are not quite sure what is real, what is not real. It is like reality of this place, of the post-colonial place. When we live in some kind of copies, which we receive from Europe and from the United States, and we are taking out of the chocolate and we are recreating the paper of the chocolate in some new piece of art. So this is why I brought the Paulo Nazareth, this copy of reality of Venezia, as an example, and tried to show that in this situation of this copy, of this small copy, of this poor copy, of this old ugly building where he put it, start something real, start something profound for this community, because they meet really, maybe still on the life show, but they live literally. And what I tried to say that I feel last time in this COVID situation, that after the COVID, a lot of time I was meeting with people. I'm not this necessity. I'm here, other people are here, and something will happen, And now I had this moment that this 1 hour has to happen something, I have to bring some information, and I have to fight for this path as this experiment of hand to enter in the world of other person, And for me, in the experience of Brazilian groups, which are really in difficult situations, like censor situation, and also we really are close in the houses, that when people meet each other, something starts happen, something like renovation of communities. I had this feeling a few times. So this is important for me. I don't know if it will stay for the longer moment, for the future. But I'm not sure what is fake, what's not fake now in this moment. If I'm more fake now when I'm in the digital situation, or when I sometimes meet a lot of people really, but it's not very really. Like in carnival situation in Brazil, there's a lot of carnival situation. Yeah. So maybe a little bit of this, and in this local intimate meeting, we discover a lot of things. We also have courage to give or to show a lot of things, more things sometimes than in the outside situation. It's also very interesting. But we are entering in our intimate world. Yeah. One thing which I also saw from these experiences of these performing meetings is that I think it's new kind of situation. It is not like it is more or less half theater, and then we will go back to something real, you know. But it's a new form for me, which is some kind of performance, but also it's a lot of rules of visual arts. I think we all are changing in becoming more or less visual arts also, because there are rules of visual arts, this frame, which is entering in my communication, artistic communication, and so this is also a space which is interesting for me. How can I be in this place and be here? And it's simple, but it's very interesting. Some kind of communication moments.
Thank you so much. I would like to come back to what Zofia said, because I found it really, you really touched some important point. I don't think that you notice when Tomasz spoke about young people, he immediately said that the young people are lost. That oh, the poor young people, they are lost because of this technology, they don't know what to do, and so on and so on. I'm not really sure if you are lost. I think that we are lost. We lost something. I mean, the people who, I was too young, but still lived in the shadow of the revolution of 60s. And I'm living in the shadow of the fall of the revolution of 60s. Because after the revolution of 60s fall, we all were learned that there will be no revolution. My basic knowledge that I get as a very young person is there will be no revolution. We talked today with Tomasz about experience of solidarity, of Solidarność in Poland. And I was also too young to experience this movement directly. So I never experienced this, I believe it was incredible experience of community, of being inside a community, communitas, as if you wish. I came late. I was late, and what I learned is that there will be no revolution because my basic biographical experience was the martial law. And martial law was the experience of everyone lost. No one will win. And in fact, the history of Poland, with 40 years of Polish history, is a history of lost. We never win. We didn't win solidarity. We lost because we have the chance to build a new world, but at a certain point we said, no, there will be no brave new world. We're going to be normal. What does it mean to be normal? To create a normal capitalist country. So we did, and now we are where we are. So being optimistic also means that what also Maciej said, and many of you said this, that there are some small things happen, that we were forced to do something that we never planned, that we started to think about ourselves in a different way. And it's unpredictable. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what our future will be. Maybe COVID will finish in half a year and everything will come back to normal. And maybe not. Maybe soon there will be deep and, let's hope not, but it's possible, violent changes. And I think that this is something really important. I believe Olena said something like that, that the treasure of being inside the theater world is to being paradoxically prepared for the unpredictable. The knowledge how to improvise, and the knowledge how to adjust yourself to the changing situation. This is something that theater people are learning, and they are used to cope with it. So maybe the deep optimism of this situation is that the change that we cannot imagine is going to happen, not because we planned it, but because it happens like that. I don't know if it makes sense for you.
I'll try to do my best in English. The question that you rose just now is about normality. And that was the question we kept asking from the very beginning of this pandemic situation. Shall we look for coming back to normality or look for something new to start building the new values? And that was the question that we kept asking half a year ago. The first answer was, shall we stop overproduction? And the second one was, is that a good time to look into the audience that we made ourselves as theoreticians, practitioners, artists? After half a year, thinking about normality is still thinking about coming back to the situation. So the question to all of you guys, have you learned anything new about your audience, about what your audience needs are? Have you learned anything new about what is necessity of art and what is your job to be done? So this is the question to all the practitioners.
Thank you so much. I will just mention shortly that we have recorded talk with Mario Biagini, who I believe answers the questions somehow. Because I don't think we do have time to present it now. It will go online soon after our discussion, so you will be able to listen to it. Mario is saying something like... Tak? Okay, we still have time. They are giving me sign that we still have time to present my short talk with Mario Biagini, so please.
I can use...
What about your work? Oh, what about your work in such circumstances? What about your work in such circumstances? How are you doing, especially
very
you?
Very hard
because
to understand what you're saying.
The name
very,
of your group is Open Program.
Difficult for me to understand what you're saying.
It's locked. So what about the Open Program in these times? Your work is based on a strict contact with people, with meetings.
That's a very good question. That's a very good question. It is something that we have, like everyone, missed a lot. It's almost, I feel it's almost of the order of sensory deprivation, you know? That you feel that something is missing. And even when you meet someone and you need to keep a mask, after some time of the conversation, you start to miss something is missing. The mimic of the face, or these little details. So there has been that aspect of this lack of direct contact. On the other hand, you know that almost everyone in our groups at the work center, they cohabit, they share apartments in small groups. So we kept rehearsing in small groups in the apartments. But the point is, rehearse for what?
Yeah.
Rehearse for what? So I read with great interest your text with your questions related to this text by Grotowski. That speaks, it's very interesting how he speaks of this possibility of a contact, of a bond that is being created. But I think that for us at the Open Program, I think there are two aspects that are important. And one is the aspect of contact and collaboration. And the other aspect is the aspect of study. Meaning that I think that nowadays, almost all in the theatrical community, we would agree that in our times, theater, yes, it's a means of expression, of artistic creation, but it is also a perfect field for study, for exploration of the study of certain subjects. And this time of Magic Mountain has been, from this point of view, an interesting question. What do we study? How? And in which way we can do this together, even if we are in different places.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, after 2017, there started this amazing collaboration between thousands of physicists, astrophysicists, astronomers, when they, in order to observe the collisions of neutron stars. So through technology, modern communication technology, they were able to coordinate their efforts on a planetary scale in order to observe, to find, observe these collisions of stars which were never observed before. And I feel that something like this can be in our domain interesting. Because there is another aspect that Grotowski points out as very specific to theater, which is the literality of action. Action is literal, no? Mm-hmm. And it's true that even if in theater there is all this aspect of fiction, representation, imagination, we are where we are. Like now, I am in front of a computer looking at the image of Darek. But the literality of this fact is that I am in my room in front of a computer, as you, in two different circumstances. So, in this sense, how can there be any kind of theater? But if we take theater or artistic research as a field of study of the functioning of the human being in action in any moment, then probably we can coordinate efforts and share findings. And so this is what we have been doing. We have been rehearsing or many different things. We started even like a process towards a completely different new work.
We are very sorry we stopped it, but we feel that we don't have enough time, first of all, to show you all this, the whole of this interview. And I also get a message from Richard Schechner that it's hard to understand what Mario is saying via Zoom. So I think it would be better if we put it online soon after our panel, so you will have, and all of you will have time to listen to it. What was very important for us, and why I mentioned this interview, trying to answer your question, was that Mario was saying a few minutes later about the essential workers. The people like someone who delivers medicine, the people who cleans the street, the people who are doing very simple but very essential work for us all to survive. And the question was, are we, the theater people, are we, and how can we become the essential workers? And I think that this is the question that somehow relates to your question about the audience, the need of audience. And I think maybe this is something most important in all this discussion. Not only for whom we are doing this in, let's say, a kind of high way of asking these questions, but on a very simple level. How can I do what I'm doing in a way to become an essential worker for someone else?
And there was also another aspect of the audience and the need of their audience, which is maybe not the audience, but people that they work for in theater, which is teenagers, young people. So Mario Biagini said, we as actors started to work on the simple act of speaking on Zoom, because this is what we can do through Zoom. So they started to pose very simple questions like, what makes you be heard? What makes you be energetic while being a good listener, and what is transposable through Zoom from this very simple act of speaking and listening. And then they thought, actually this research that we are making now, how to speak well, what is the gesture, what is transferable, what is not, might be really helpful for our young people that we do theater with, because there is a huge need among young people to raise their literacy, their social skills, the way they express themselves. They said that the level of this kind of literacy, to be able to speak up, to be able to write and read, and oratorial capacity is really low, and they really see it. So actually some kind of pandemic make them study something that can also bring a lot to the people that they work for.
Okay, my answer for your question, what is, very important about the audience, for whom we are doing, how bring them back to our work, to the theater, is crucial, because without them there is no sense to work. But there is I think that we should start from something else. What is for me the most important now, really most important, and this time, very strange time, then to share with the audience if it's important for them. If it's important for them, this is what I am doing. Otherwise, this is like Grotowski told, do what is your main theme, do what is your main question, work on this, and then try to share with the others, if it's for others the same. Otherwise, when we will ask audience what they want, this is some trap to be nice, to make something against their fear, to complete some problems, to be server for something. And this is not the task and rule of the art. The art is to put the question for me. I am talking about me. Put the question and make this question important as well for the audience, that they will start to change something in their life, or maybe only put the question for themselves what we are doing. But this is the time for found ourselves the way of dealing with this, what we think is the most important, and then look for the bridge. Mario told as well about the education, that maybe start as well work in the schools, try there, put the question, work with them, try teach the young people something simple, that they are not afraid to be together, that they could found the relationship between them. Some simple games, but something like this in the education. It's a lot of fields, but we don't know. I can just answer that this festival, this conversation is to understood more. It's impossible to find the answer. There is to help each other to look for this, what is now the most important.
Richard, you give us a sign that you want to...
Well, just two brief observations. First of all, at least in the United States, COVID has revealed very clearly what we all should have known or knew and forgot or knew and didn't do much about. That is the structural racism and structural inequities, so that it just became clear who's dying. Well, the people who are dying are the people who do the work that puts them in close contact, and they're people of color for the large, proportion. So COVID is a kind of X-ray of what, at least in American society, of a lot of what's wrong, and that's what brought people into the streets and keep them into the streets, and I feel that that's still threatened. The other thing is about how I think what COVID has shown us is who are our audiences. In other words, the audiences for your festival in Łódź, are they the same as Augusto Boal's audiences were in Brazil? In other words, are they because Augusto Boal and Theater of the Oppressed and all of its various manifestations go out to quote ordinary people, quote, and they are not, it's not a quote an art theater. In other words, it's different. And I think Thomas's theater radiates out by virtue of waves. It doesn't meet a mass audience. None of us are involved in a mass audience, not even Boal's theater. So I think we have to, this thing has also shown us how many different kinds of theater there are, and that sometimes they are not in enough contact with each other. Now, I'm editor of TDR, and part of what I try to do is to have this broad spectrum represented. We did a forum about COVID. 14 of our editors wrote about it and addressed these questions. If anybody wants to access that, it's online on Facebook and my page and TDR's page, but you can also email me directly and I'll send it to you. And I feel that this is giving us, and that's where my optimism is, if I have it, is it's giving us an opportunity to really see things more clearly, things that we knew or should have known. It brings them out in chiaroscuro, in sharp outline. And then the question will be, what will we do about these inequities? How will we address them? And that's not, there I'm not so optimistic in terms of the political outcome. I mean, even I'm most concerned now with the election in the United States, and Trump is playing the classic racist fear-monger card. You don't know all of the details, but it's been done before. The Willie Horton thing, the Southern strategy, it goes way back in American politics, to allow people to vote racists and not feel they are racist. And it's not a done deal. And I also know that in places in Europe, in Poland and Hungary and Russia and Romania, and in Germany there's rising fascism, and in Italy there's rising fascism, so that what we thought was dead and gone has also been revealed to be here. And the power of the social media, not only to enlighten, but to corrupt, not only to liberate, but to enslave. And we have to be aware of that, I feel.
Yes, Maciej. Maciej.
Thank you for this voice. I didn't want to talk too much, but this subject is very important also for Brazil here. So I will try to be short. That's important to say some things. Truly for me, it's important focus and to look for how this physical theater, which is important for me personally, and I believe can survive. It's one thing. I'm trying to do my solo in my house about identity in Brazil, in Afro-Brazil, but it's one subject. But there is other subject which I think Richard now is telling what kind of theaters we are talking about. There's a lot of theaters, and this political theater is very, very serious subject. I would like to say a little bit more, because one thing which has happened in Brazil, as in the United States, that appear clearly all this equality of this society. Deep, profound disequality, and deep, profound structural racism. I forgot to tell one number. In last year, there was like 11% more black people died in the violent situation, and 13% white people less. Okay, so this is huge, you know. Brazil is like continent, you know, and when we have this situation of the racism, of the fascism here in Brazil, it's increasing, and it's very serious. It's like political plan, very direct political plan of group of people connected with Bolsonaro, connected with also with evangelics, radical churches. Not all, but radical churches, which is called Pentecostal. And this crazy connection is attacking very strongly, you know. And they are creating some kind of public theater, as I told in the beginning, of public censor. They are censoring is correct, yeah? There is continuous action of censure the communication. How? They are not cutting the voice. They put so much voice in the air that nobody hear nothing. And this is very serious, and this is very new, I think. It's like I remember Goebbels telling the lie so much time that it becomes true, you know. And so yesterday appeared situation. All the cases against Amazonia is cutting off. You know, there will be no justice in Amazonia. There is a lot of situation of corruption, of the government corruption, of the Bolsonaro corruption. It appears it's here, but they put so much other information. They're shocking with some other information every time more radical. Like somebody die, everybody, some group die, police killed something. They are making big actions against drug dealers and killing like 100 people, you know. And we start to live in the moment when it starts to be normal. Nobody cares more of the quantity of the people die, you know. And what is the paper of this essential worker? I begin it from yesterday. I think about from yesterday, and I think it entered as Richard talked about the Boal, in all this tradition of guerrilla theater in South America, and we feel a little bit in this situation because each pass for create a little bit more fascism accepted, we're trying to disarm with some action which is mainly visual or performer, you know? Like some protests on the street, like some picture, like some image, and this is like war on the Instagram, you know. So what is possibility of this physical theater, of this essential theater, to be essential in this very important moment? I know, Richard, that in the next 10 years, nobody probably remember about this, but in this moment, we are remembering of some very concrete situation here. And as I told, universities still exist. We still exist. We are making the fence on the line of defense, you know. I'm creating some theater space in the forest, which will cooperate with the university. This is, for example, my idea how I can help a little bit of people. But there is a lot of activity of cure, of help, of embrace. You know, these very simple actions on internet, and all based on dance of some health activity, body activity, a lot of things like this. So there's a lot of movement here in Brazil. I don't know how it's in different parts of the world. I'm sorry that I told too much, but I thought that it's important to say about these political problems, huge political problems connected with visual performer actions.
Don't you think that almost all that you and all of us said tonight has something very precise in common? We are all coming back to simple things, or to essential things, essential workers, essential actions. Tomasz said about coming back to this essential situation of working without thinking about the audience. Mario was saying about very essential work with young people of developing their performative skills, but performative in a sense of action in life, in common life. Maciej is speaking about simple actions that are trying to, as far as I understood, to make a pause in all these rumors and all this noise around media. Olena was saying again about simple, very simple things. We all, the same was what Anna said at the very beginning, we all came back somehow to a very simple things. Is this the way of revolution you mentioned? Is there a hope in the simple things?
I will do my best in English. I think that what is essential about human being, but also what is essential in the theater, is to use 5 senses of the human being in the same time. And if the 5 senses are involved, it is quite simple to come back for a human being to our center, to where we feel home. And what I love in the theater is first that I'm coming into a place where I'm living my private life, my troubles, my struggles and so on, and I'm coming into the place where I'm open for what I hear, what I see, what I feel. That's first thing, the space which is somehow taken out from the daily life. That is the first thing. And the second thing, the voice of the actors. These are vibrations. I feel it on my skin. I can't feel it if I'm sitting in front of the computer, or if I can feel it in a different way. But I'm sensing theater through my body as well. That is a sound of touch. I can feel, I can smell things when I'm watching theater. And I'm thinking, is it possible to make visual arts on basic, on involving all 5 senses into the performance, thinking about audience, that they, if they are locked in the houses, how can they still use 5 senses? And how can they center themselves still, if it is possible, while we are sitting in front of the computer? That's the question, if it is possible. There is also, I think, there is also a lack of pedagogy, theater pedagogy in whole Europe. The pedagogy which would show children how to come back to themselves, how to really listen, how to really be involved in the performance while they are watching or while they are interacting with the actors.
And again, simple things.
If I may answer this question, well, it's the answer is not simple. The simple things that we need, it's most of the times I think it's like a blind alley. We want it the same. It's the same narration that we want to go back to something that is safe, that is certain, that is basic, that we cannot do without. But each of us, or some of us, define it in different ways. For some people, basic or simple is the direct contact with one another. And I think if we stick to this as basics, we cannot go out of this crisis in a creative way. I believe more in what Mitchell quoted by Tomasz Majewski wrote, that we can have strong images that engage all our senses, but we need to know how to create those images. Not every image can engage us all, but we know these images from museums or from internet or from any places or from very nice documentary films. We all know the images that engage us in a whole, like, holistic way, right? But we also have many like weak images that address more or less only our visual capacities. So I think we need to be more mediatized and more address the media problem in a more complex way, to not to go back to the simple truth, which is the solution is the direct contact. Yeah, but this, I mean, the simple thing is that we need sensory activity on all of the levels, but the way out of it is not that we stick to the way we were fulfilling this need earlier. We have to find another way to use the tools that we have, for example, only images through Zoom, in a way that it's like coping with this need of ours. I don't know if I'm clear.
Mike, say something. Okay.
Yes. Thomas, please, because there is still a question that Richard asked about what are you going to continue after all this?
Yes, I'll just start from the last comment. I would just like to stress that I feel that in this kind of moment, in this kind of discussion, it's quite important for everybody's liberty and for everybody's freedom to understand that there will be many possible creative living answers to this situation. And in the moment when the rhetoric, or we start to say, which is human somehow, we need this, we need that, potentially we go astray. Because I don't know you, you don't know me in the end. I don't know what will lead you to be creative.
We lost Thomas.
Thomas has disappeared.
Yes, we see he has disappeared. Our time is out.
Somebody should email him and let him know.
Yes, we will do it in a minute.
Well.
No, they are giving us a sign that our time is out. But with our time span on a Zoom is out. We need to finish, and this is the disadvantage of the Zoom discussion, because if you were here,
so this shows what social media can do and what it can't do. So
Thomas is trying to reconnect, I suppose.
There he is.
Thomas, can you hear us?
We lost you, Thomas.
He's frozen. He's frozen. I don't. No, he's trying to reconnect.
Okay. In the meanwhile, Tomasz is asking me to say again, to recommend again the films, the videos that we are uploading on the page, Facebook page and YouTube of Retroperspektywy Festival with Mario Biagini, the one that we started watching already, and Maria of Klintberg from Sweden. So this is already available.
Thomas is trying to reconnect.
Hello.
Hello, Thomas. You vanished from our screen for a moment.
You have last 3 minutes. Am I here? Am I back now?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you. We cannot see you. We can hear you. Oh, yes, here you are.
Hello.
Hello.
You can hear me.
Yes.
Yes, sorry.
Hear you and see.
Okay, there's a technical problem. Yeah. So there are 1,000 million possible creative answers to this situation. And each one of us, hopefully will descend within themselves and question themselves enough to exit or to turn this circumstance to a very fruitful, creative way to answer. And I go back to what Richard said. Richard, I deeply appreciate your intervention and also your question to me, because I get the chance to say to you, I have no answer, meaning, which is, what will you do after? And I think or as the situation changes, what will we bring from this? And I think that is the true question for all of us, and each of us will give our own answers, and potentially, if we struggle well, that answer will be somehow essential. And this brings us to the question, which is a very big question, of what is essential and what is not essential. And that has been brought up, and also this term essential workers, which refers to some people who do very things that are needed by all of society. For example, it's needed by all of society somehow that the city is cleaned, that the streets are cleaned, that the food is arriving to people, that the trucks are bringing the food. There are certain kind of essential happenings that feed a wide sector of society. And this is truly needed for life, for sustain, to go forward. However, there are also essential activities that happen in smaller microcosmoses. For example, my relation with Grotowski, that was something that did not feed many people. It did not nourish many people. But from the point of view of my life, of what my inner life is, of what life is, of what art is, it's for me, it's like the most essential meeting in my life. And if that meeting didn't happen, I would have missed something. So that has an essential aspect, even though somehow it maybe had a smaller range of population that was affected by it. And then we get to what Richard said about different kinds of creative works, and also what Maciej said. There are different ways of trying to have an impact, an effect in the world. One is a political way. Another is a different way, like Richard said it in his own words, that a certain kind of work can affect the work in waves. It happens, and then it affects the life very deeply of one individual and another individual, and it affects in waves. That can also be extremely essential. And what is the point? What is the point in the end is that what you do is really done. If you're going to teach somebody to read, does that person really learn how to read? If you're going to feed 10 people, and that's your choice, do you really feed those 10 people? If you're going to meditate, and if you're going to pray, is that prayer really, really done? Is it really engaging all of you? Is it really accomplished? So somehow, in each of our solitudes, because we've been forced into this solitude, we can re-ask ourselves, what is it we really want to do? And then also to question ourselves, am I really, really doing it?
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you so much. It was the best finish of our discussion we can imagine. We are getting the signs from our technicians that our time is absolutely finished. So thank you so much from the deepest of my heart. Thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank
it was
you.
a great
Thank you for the
to having you all here.
Great
Thank you so much.
Dariusz,
Thank you.
Tomek.
Let's hope we will meet soon alive somehow.
Great to see everyone. Thank you.
Very much.